Vermont and Forest Hill are two suburbs located about 18 kilometres east of Melbourne CBD, and today we're standing right on the boundary in between the two of them at Brentford Square Shopping Centre. This is one of many squares you'll find in this part of the world and is a great example of the type of retail strips that were built around here in the 1960s, 70s and 80s. They were built as quintessential car-first designs. Borrowing from similar places in the United States, they were a world away from the walkable, dense shopping strips that you'd find in cities prior to the Second World War and the popularisation of cars. One of these is Brentford Square, here on Canterbury Road in Forest Hill, east of Springvale Road. This area was mostly orchards and other farmland well into the 1950s, but suburban sprawl quickly reached them, and the new houses needed shops to service them. The first parcel of Brentford Square was on the west side of what is today the southern part of Stevens Road. This land was formerly some sort of orchard, as you can see in this aerial photo from 1956. At some point between then and 1960, the land was sold and developed into the first part of what was called a drive-in shopping centre, and designated for retail use in the 1959 Metropolitan Planning Scheme. The design featured a large surface car park facing Canterbury Road, with shops placed at the very back to the south and the east side. In keeping with its car-centric design, the centrepiece of the development was a large petrol station directly on Canterbury Road, and the land used for car parking was much larger than that used for the shops or footpaths. Its opening was just a few years before that of the nearby Forest Hills Shopping Centre in 1964, which is today Forest Hill Chase, and which I'll probably do a separate video about one day. At this time, Brentford Square was actually called Parkmore Shopping Centre. This was a name sometimes used to refer to this locality around Forest Hill and Vermont, named after the nearby residential subdivision called Parkmore Estate. The name was changed sometime in 1967 to Brentford Square, although I can't find out exactly why. The shopping centre today called Parkmore, located in Keysborough, opened in 1974, so I don't think there's a connection here. Shops at Brentford Square in these early days included a N.R. Howard Hardware, Backer Design and the Parkmore Liquor Store. By 1965, the National Bank of Australasia opened a branch here, and Woolworths opened a new supermarket at 5 Brentford Square, which is today the same shop where Dan Murphy's is. Dickens also opened a supermarket at 25 Brentford Square, where the Op Shop and Indian supermarket are today. By the 1980s, the area had changed dramatically. Canterbury Road had been widened to a dual carriageway, and Forest Hill was no longer an outer suburb. This had increased demand for shops even further, and the owners of the square looked to capitalise on this opportunity by building the second stage of the centre. They bought the neighbouring property at 486 Canterbury Road, which was then still farmland, to expand the shopping centre to the east. Here they would build 481 more car parking spaces and a new fast food outlet. And unfortunately for the existing Woolworths and Dickens, this site also included a brand new Safeway supermarket. Originally scheduled to open in 1984, it instead opened late in June 1985. This brand new and much larger supermarket soon had an impact on the two existing ones. Dickens closed just 4 years later in 1989, and I can't find out exactly when the Woolworths closed, but I don't imagine that it lasted much longer. This newspaper ad from 1996 shows that Philip Murphy, today Dan Murphy's, had moved into 5 Brentford Square by 1996 at the latest, so the Woolworths had certainly closed by then. This eastern expansion also brought about a major change to the streets in the area. With the construction of the new Safeway, the north end of Stephen Street was rerouted around the eastern boundary, and a small section of the original street converted into a small park. This seems quite similar to me of the configuration of Pacific Way and other streets just behind nearby Forest Hill Chase. Other shops at Brentford Square in the 1980s and 90s included an old-style bread centre and a movie land. No trees were planted in the car park until 1987, and there were further streetscape upgrades including benches and signs installed by Whitehorse City Council in 1995. Today the shopping centre is still here with plenty of shops. There is a Traders Association established in 1998, and Woolworths has taken its revenge on the Safeway supermarket, which is today called Woolworths after Safeway were bought out in 1985. And that's the story of Brentford Square. Do you live in the area? Do you have any other stories about the square or Parkmore or any of the surrounding areas? Please let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear all about it. If you're new here and you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Every subscriber means I can get more stories about Melbourne and Victoria out to more people. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.